Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the Endless 8 podcast, a curated list of 8 selected works of Kyoto animation. I am your host for this endeavor, Yata, and joining me is the other host for this endeavor, 𝓈𝒸𝒶𝓇𝓇𝑒, or Kai.
My name is Kai 𝓈𝒸𝒶𝓇𝓇𝑒, and my staple food is love.
Mine is entropy.
No, that makes you cement addiction. Come on. That's season 2. We're not talking about season 2 today. But we're here today to talk about Hibike Euphonium, the legendary show, the band drama from Kyoto Animation from 2015.
I think this is the beautiful dessert after, the necessary hearty meal that was 𝓈𝒽𝒾𝓃𝓄𝓈. Not to put any shade on 𝓈𝒽𝒾𝓃𝓄𝓈, but comparison is sometimes a cruel thing.
Yeah.
You have 2 children and one of them is the valedictorian at high school or whatever, she's the president of all the clubs and the other guy's just sort of there. He's that kind of blob of grey matter. And he's great in his own right, but it's just not a sister, And
we'll see. We're going to be talking a lot about talent and inherent ability and, performance on different levels throughout the course of this. Yeah, the first thing I want to start off with here for as far as Sound Euphonium goes is just an overview of who all's involved, what the background was. Again, 2015. This one's directed by Naoko Yamada.
All of it?
Ishihara is also listed as a director, but Yamada has series director credit. And people, again, throughout do different episodes back and forth. It's the whole gang at Kyoto Animation. The studio's running on all cylinders throughout the production of this, and you can clearly see how refined everything has gotten over the course of the show, how clean it really is. We've got Juki Hanada on the series composition script. It's very tight.
Very, very tight.
13 episodes, right, in the first season. Very poignant. We got Akito Masuda on the music. Insane music, right?
I'm just going to chime in with yep, you're right. Keep going.
Well, the production values on all these, got to shout these people out. It's adapted from a novel, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever read the novel. I don't think anybody really has. This is kind of the first work, but
we might get to why the novel is not there's a certain relationship maybe that occurs in the novel that every fan of the anime did not want to happen.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
See, I was going to go in a different direction with the novel being introduced because this was, I don't know if this had started yet, that process of Kyoto Animation not using any pre-established intellectual properties and kind of buying or getting the intellectual properties, or was that Violet Evergarden that was the first one of those, so that they didn't have to pay Kodansha all the rights and money and everything?
Yeah, I'm not sure because I only really became aware of this when Dragon Maid came out, came out, and I was sort of assumed that anything pre Dragon Maid was sort of either exempt or I never really thought about it in the same light as I would have shows that was post Dragon Maid. So I'm not 100% sure if they even own the rights to it. It was mainly just, it was for the fans of the series. We'll set the business guys aside, because I figure either it's successful enough that they can ignore policy, or they have the rights to it because they've gone into it now. We've had 2 movies and 2 seasons, and we have another project coming soon. So they must have at least a stake, enough of a financial stake in it that they can sort of
right,
rehash it out whenever needed.
It seems that way, and it seems like that was kind of the game plan after they did, Haruhi and Nichijou and all these other shows that were owned by Kadokawa or whoever else there, and they had to split the revenue with them, and they were, a lot of the stuff was out of their hands. They were just brought in to do the anime. They kind of changed that. They said, we're going to own these brands, we're going to own these properties, and we're going to sell the merch at our KyoAni store in Kyoto,
which I didn't go to when I was in Osaka. Oh my god!
Oh no!
Yeah. Well, it was a year after the fire. And it was one of those things, we had a tight window in terms of what we could do, and I was so overwhelmed by the sheer level of otaku-ness that you could just find within the city limits of Osaka, that I was oh my god, I think I don't have time to go to Kyoto. I think this is another trip, because
that is my number one place to pay my respects at the building and go to the store.
Yeah, see, the problem is it's not from what my scouting, it's very unremarkable in terms of a building. You could pass by it and just not even notice it's there, right?
Oh, totally.
And I was I have to convince other people on this trip that it's worthy of getting to, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because it's they're okay, yeah, you want to go to Animates again.
Yeah.
You know, but that's at least that's in like the area that it's in is like called Den Town in Osaka, which is sort of like the kind of
the
otaku
weed
area.
mecca. Yeah, the place
Actually,
to be.
Is it Den Town or is that in Tokyo?
No, it's
It's in the otaku area. You know, all the maid cafes and all that stuff was all around the area, and there's plenty of like distractions. For as I was like going through, like, oh, they have a Run with the Wind sticker. I need these. No. I need these. You know, and that was like during the boom of like Slime and Zombieland Saga, and there was like, there must have been some Eva coming out as well because God, there was just like that stuff was everywhere. I stopped myself from swearing there for a second, and realized
I don't know what's our policy on swearing on this podcast.
We definitely swore in the last one. Yeah. I guess I always like hold it out until that big that you drop a mic like 19 minutes in and you drop an F-bomb or something like that, you know?
Yeah, nobody's expecting it.
Yeah. No, you just dropped a C word. Didn't see that coming.
My father was a sailor, so I grew up with it in my soul.
I was going to say he literally had a sailor's mouth.
Yeah. Okay.
Are they as coarse with their language as the expression would have you believe? Like, do they swear a lot, the sailors?
Yeah. It's all true. Everything you've heard. Yeah, all the rumors are true.
The rumors of my decline have been greatly exaggerated. Anyway,
so where are we starting with this? Yeah. Production values off the charts. Shout outs to everybody who helped produce this, including the late character designer Shoko Ikeda. Speaking of the fire,
how about we start at the beginning in terms of like, I asked you this question previously in the last episode, and we kind of knew it. It was an interesting take in the fact that this is the one that you would come to a lot later in sort of like your anime fandom. I know this already because you said that you've watched it twice, which implies that you didn't just binge watch it to get ready for this episode. You have an experience with this, and what is it?
Oh, I mean, I was into anime. I was into anime as a subculture and as a hobby, as a critical analysis. I was going through and thinking about my favorite shows, watching lots of backlog. I'd gotten back into anime in 2011, and by the time 2015 rolled around, I knew who Kyoto Animation was. I knew what they had made, and I knew I was a fan. And then when you see the trailers for Sound Euphonium, that was something I knew I had to watch while it was airing, and I did watch season 2 when it was airing too, and that's when I went back and rewatched season 1.
Nice, dude.
What about you? It was great when you watching it the first time. What did you feel?
But back then, like I actually didn't watch it as it was airing. I remember at that time being like really into like AMV making, and I was really focusing on a lot of like kind of bonesy A1, like kind of more like big budget production sort of shows. Also trying to get through, like I had this backlist of movies I had to watch. Like, oh, you've never seen Ghost in the Shell. I have to watch Ghost in the Shell, right? Or I have to watch Akira. I have to watch, even though Akira actually came later. That was like one of my white whales in terms of like, I don't think I watched Akira until like 2019. It was like absurd. It became like a thing then, like, you know, like, oh, you have to watch Akira. I was like, and I won't.
Yeah.
You know?
Turns into a meme. I get it.
And then eventually you're like, what? Like, the only person you're sort of like hurting here is yourself, you know? Which is, you know, we might get into this a little bit later, but we probably won't. But
no, I can't imagine Akira would be relevant to Euphonium at all. But
you never know. The clouds, man. The clouds.
Well, production values. Let's talk animation production values.
But, so I think I saw it. I think it was like a couple of seasons afterwards, so like 6 months after the event. I think also at that point I wasn't so enmeshed in the fandom that I would have to like, I needed like I was one of these people that wouldn't watch weekly anime. I was like, I had to have it completed because I was going to binge through it if I liked it, and I needed like a certain rating on Mal, or like I needed like enough people to tell me.
You were an asshole, is what you were saying.
Well, I just wasn't plugged into the community at all. Like I didn't go to Reddit. I had no like anime friends other than my real life friends, like my physical friends who liked anime. So it was like, how do you find something? Someone tells you something, or you go to.
God, it wasn't out of snobbery. It was just you weren't aware. It wasn't on your radar.
Yeah, I literally was. The only AniTubers back then I was watching was literally, I think it was Digibro, if he was a thing. I think he was, or they or she was a thing.
Shout out to Trixie retiring from content creation.
Yeah, dude. I was literally thinking, I hope it happened that somebody actually saved certain videos.
Oh yeah. The videos are archived.
That how to tell if an episode is bad after one episode.
Yes, I remember that one. Remember that.
Yeah,
I believe it. I
I think
subscribe.
I had a similar theory that I was like independently working on my own because it's like a thing, And I remember like, when that video came out, it was like, God, I should have wrote that. I had that idea, It's like I might have a friend who always claims that he had some great invention, and then he never got around to making it, and 6 months later he found it in the store, and it was like that could have been me, Not that I could have done the work that Digi was doing at that time, but I remember having a sort of my own sort of like take on that with regards to like specifically anime, and I guess by sort of like what we say Japanese media in general, because they were coming from like manga and light novels, and there's such like a formula to them. But we digress. I watched it. I was absolutely blown away by Euphonium, like literally blown away. I remember like coming out of it, and I hate to do this because you get very like the prisoner of the moment. I remember watching it and going, that might be my favorite anime I've ever seen. Like it legitimately might be. I think I watched it about 4 times in total since then. This is the 4th podcast I've done talking about Euphonium. So we've only released 1, and that was a new person watches it, and the other person who's seen it and is so enfranchised. They're like, didn't you just love when Sapphire-chan was carrying, and it was just like, it was maybe not as coherent as it could have been, because you're so in like you're like a lusty middle-aged woman reading her fantasy erotic fiction. You sort of lose the control of yourself.
There's a film critic Hulk once wrote a thing about the different levels of consumption, and I think what you're talking about there is riding high on that first experiential level of the first time you go into some media that really strikes you, and you're taken on the ride, as you very much are, through the high production values and the good writing of Euphonium. You've taken on the ride along with the characters. You're kind of swept up in this collective group effort thing, and you're feeling what they're feeling, and that vicarious emotion get you riled up, get you into it. Then after that's kind of cooled down, after you've experienced that, you've come back to it, then you can come back and look at the mechanics of it, how it goes about manipulating you, and why it's so good at doing that.
Yeah. We had a quote last week to end the episode. This is not a quote that is actually directly relatable to Euphonium, but I wanted to bring it up, and it was from Roger Ebert. Again, as a film critic who brought it up, I wanted to kind of share this. This is him talking about Goodfellas. He says, most films, even great ones, evaporate like mist once you've returned to the real world. They leave memories behind, but the reality fades fairly quickly. Not this film.
Is it something that inhabits your mind? And then like this show, I know, spawned so much fan art and fan fiction, really hit a lot of people in that way. Or is that the impetus you're talking about in this Roger Ebert quote of the thing that sticks with you and inhabits your memory and you put in your Twitter profile?
Yeah, because I think the proof is in the pudding with this one. I think there's no real data to prove this, but I think if you had to like say which show from the 8 that were selected, and in the Kyoto back catalog in general has the most like rabid fan base. I'm not saying the biggest. I'm saying the most like dedicated, the loyal, the most obsessive. Those Euphonium stands, like they're kind of different, right? There's like Euphonium people, and you can see it all over YouTube, all over Twitter, where there's just like there is a community there of people. Like there's certain anime that have this. I think like Haikyuu has this as well. Madoka Magic sort of has this as well, from my experience. But with Euphonium, it was just because I don't know, because I felt myself kind of drawn to that world. It just felt more explicit than we'll say Clannad. Like I don't think Clannad has this sort of like fanaticism.
Yeah.
As like enjoyable as it is and as cute as Dango is, No,
it's kind of faded with time. Certainly, it's kind of dulled, I guess would be the right word. I want to say that I think the staying power of Euphonium is because of its reality, or how real the conflicts and the structure and everything in the show becomes really over the course of the show. Because this isn't a fantasy. There's literally no, highfalutin drama and plot nonsense or anything. It's just a band drama. And the emotions that are invoked by it are so tangible and so forthright that it really, really can relate very easily to something that normal people have experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess on a production level, if you're like a Sakuga nerd or whatever, this one is flawless.
Oh, yeah.
You want to talk about like KyoAni eyes? I know, I hear you Violet Evergarden fans, but But
well,
just hold
I
on
guess
there a second.
that's a couple things that I wanted to talk about. Like, as we mentioned before, this is KyoAni clicking. This is like them on all cylinders. Like, the only other thing that I think is on this level of production quality in general is like, I don't know, early or like 2011, 2010 with Disappearance and Nichijou. Like, I kind of hold those two up as like, man, they were really on during that time. But I think
I
this
know
one,
you're not a fan
again,
of it. I know you're not a fan of it, but
oh,
the production quality of Hyoka is
yes.
it's
That
actually
can't be denied.
intimidating as well.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of in that
So
golden run as well. Like you can
right.
see, you know, like Chidanda looks a little bit like Reina, you know, and
Yeah, we're somewhere in between the 2010s Kyoto animation and the 2015 Kyoto animation. Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I think too that this kind of like we arrive at peak KyoAni character design. Is that a weird thing to say? Because I don't know, maybe Violet Evergarden would be a little bit closer. Maybe Free, I don't know, would be a little bit closer. But I think this character design is peak in several different ways.
The scale for one thing is in this one it's actively like noticeable how impressive the character design is, because you're just like, you know, like Drill's girl, right? Like, you know, she's just there, but she is so well designed. There's not like a sort of like, it's not the Yu-Gi-Oh meme, right, where it's sort of like spot the main character. You know what I mean?
That's very deliberate, though. They gave personalities, names, positions on the concert hall for every character in this orchestra. Like, they have a whole character sheet and backstory for every single character in the entire band. That's purposeful.
And you know what I love about that? The fact that because they did that, they could, like, it sort of makes this sort of like Easter egg thing where you have like a Nozomi character, right? Who's like a much more like pronounced thing in season 2, and then in Liz and the Bluebird, and you're like,
yep,
you're kind of wondering, oh, like, but did they put the effort in at the beginning? Can you see Nozomi? Can you like look her and point her out to, there she is, and that's her, and that's like, you know, that's like her character design, and that's her personality, and she doesn't even like say a word in season 1,
right? She doesn't have a line. And
I thought those, like, in terms of like structuring an episode and creating this sort of like wider sort of thing that people can latch onto. I love the fact that the break cards would introduce the various like sections of the band. You know, it's like, oh, here are the trumpet players, or here are the bass section or whatever. It's just like, that is just so, because I think a lot of people love, or at least I kind of like ascribe this sort of like passion. I think people like to build it outwards. You know, it's like, oh, you have this thing where like, I have these 4 main characters. These are 4, like, I guess 5 if you include Asuka, but these like 5 main characters, but there's this like worlds beyond that are just like so like gratifying and like awesome and quirky and different. And when you have like character design and like the effort to like just spotlight it in a way that's not like, you know, like forced, or like you just have a random scene that's sort of like incoherent to the rest of the story, it's just very, very well done.
Well, so what I wanted to say about that in particular is that this is not only just something that's good and something they should do because they have the time and the resources to do, and it makes it feel more organic. It's actually core to the story. And if we take that the core concept of season 1 of Hibike Euphonium is all about this kind of theme of collective passion and trying very hard at one collective goal, and the sacrifices that you make for that, all tied in with this backstory of adolescence and figuring out who and what you want to be and what you want to do and what you want to care about, then it is beneficial to the show to have all these very, very minor characters that are all fully fleshed out and have thought about and have had that effort put in, because then you can see them contribute in that way. Or I know you wanted to mention the senpai character who doesn't really take things seriously. I forget her name at the time.
Asuka?
Oh no, Asuka's all about it, right? Asuka's
the glasses girl? Or so you're talking about the girl who quits to go to like
Natsuki. Yes, Natsuki. That's her name.
Yeah, if you're opening the Natsuki barrel, I'm going to be like ready to hop in there.
I just want to say how I view Natsuki, because Natsuki's the perfect example of this. She's also in the band, or like the who's the dumbass trumpet guy who's the love interest for
Yes, I literally
for
had his name.
Hazuki.
I literally had his name pulled up.
I don't even remember who cares about his name, but he's in the same position of like he's in this band. He has to buy in as well, but Natsuki also has to like she comes to her arc is that she comes to buy into. She gets swept up in everybody participating and caring and wanting to try very hard to go to the nationals. Whereas at the beginning of the show, she doesn't give a shit at all and she's just sleeping. So that is those elements of seeing all these different characters being affected by Reina's passion and by all the passions of everybody who's bought into the idea. It makes it feel so powerful because it's not just Kumiko doing it. It is Kumiko, of course, but it's more than that. It's everyone, and that's a collective group effort. That's what the show's about.
Yeah, you very well said. So I think we're going to get to Natsuki later on as we get into the characters. So I'm going to save like the effusive gushing over my all-time favorite anime character. And let's let me get into like I do. Oh, like I think it's
okay.
Like, it's a little bit.
I didn't mean to steal it from you then.
No, because like I just one the anime is like it's I think now that it's sort of like dulled in terms of like I get to rationalize it now. I say it's like if it's not my favorite, it's like top 3. Okay, like there's a couple that are like you could maybe make a case for.
Before we set out to do this, I was on Twitter and they announced season 3, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a thing that happened. We should acknowledge that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But if season 1 of Hibike Euphonium is not a 10 out of 10 for you, you need to check yourself.
Yeah.
Because, you need to figure out why, and you need to have a good explanation for it. Because this anime is fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be denied.
Like, it's one of those things where like, yeah, there's so much to say, and there's so much I don't want to kind of front load it. But so I guess if we kind of get into like maybe start off.
We're
with
20 minutes in. We're not front loading anything. Hit me with it.
Okay, I was just gonna say like, random things that like I love. Is like one, like it's my favorite training arc in an anime. Like this, and I just when because and this gets into like the character herself. Okay, so that's why I thought maybe it would be good to get to 2 characters in specific, which is Kumiko and Reina, which are sort of like the 2 again against the alpha and omega of this series. Like there's a lot of great pairs. And that's what I love is like there's like 5 pairs of characters that I just like love their sort of dynamic. But at the name is on the marquee, right? It's like it's Kumiko and it's Reina, and especially season 1, not less so season 2. But those characters, like, it's so much of the show is like just carried by these 2.
Right, and the core concept is that they foil each other, right? Yeah. Like they have this relationship where they were together in middle school and got their dud gold, right? That's the first scene of the show.
Yeah.
And Reina was not satisfied, whereas Kumiko accepted it. Yeah. And then in high school, Reina has not given up her passions. She still wants to, pursue the highest level possible, be the best she can be. And Kumiko is not. She's indecisive. She's not a negative. She's not against it, but she's back and forth. And it takes Reina's passion to really convince Kumiko to get on board, because Kumiko, having the talent at the Euphonium, doesn't have the will, and she absorbs it from Reina, I guess. It's a weird word. It makes it sound like it reduces Reina's passion, but it doesn't. It's the opposite. It goes forward, and then Kumiko being passionate about it leaks out to everyone else. And there's a couple foil dynamics that we have here. We have the on the other side is Hazuki, her naivete, right? Yeah. Like she's not the person, and she doesn't have the skill, but she buys in.
Every time I rewatch the series, I forget how much I loved her.
She's great.
Oh man, when that scene at the end of I think it's episode 8, which is like when so the music is carrying over, so you don't actually hear her, and she's talking about the fact that she basically got rejected,
right, by whatever shithead his name is.
Sen, I think it's Naguchi. Is that his name? No Gucci. Okay,
no Gucci. There you go.
Yeah, I'll give it. I think that character gets inexplicable amounts of, like, not inexplicable, but an unfair amount of hate. Like, he puts up with a lot of like sarkiness and sort of like poking from Kumiko. I think he's ultimately a very like normal, and he's not a terrible guy, but he's not Reina, and he can get fucked because obviously there's a certain Yeah, I just feel like a certain character is like never got like, you are so inoffensive and you're actually kind of a nice guy, but you get so much hate. It's just like that's like the Euphonium fandom is they're passionate. Just not about him.
And they're not passionate about this boring ass high school romance with Joe Schmo over here. They're passionate about the Kumiko and Reina and the Yuri baiting.
Yeah,
it's another thing we can get into.
So like on these two, like I think I think there's sort of two camps. Like, are you a Reina guy or are you a Kumiko guy? Not that they're like you have to choose one. This is not like, I don't know, like Kill la Kill or something like that, where there's like these two poles. They're sort of like the best version. What I love about a good romance, even though I'm like sort of drawn weirdly towards bad romance, because it sort of like mirrors like a lot of my experiences. But what I love about a good romance,
I've said many times that my favorite genre is teenagers finding out what love isn't.
Yeah, it is.
There's a little bit of that in Hibike. There's a little bit.
I think like if I had to say like what's one thing I would say like what's a really cool thing about like a good couple is that they sort of like inspire each other to be the best version of each other, of themselves.
That's good, right? Yeah.
And what I love about this sort of pairing is how, and this is because it's so profound, like how you feel like Kumiko is sort of like lost at sea sort of vibes as she transitions from like middle school to high school, where she's really just, I don't think she knows what she wants to be yet, or she doesn't know who she is yet. And then she just sees what she has at home with her sister, right? And then she sees Reina, and Reina, like, again, we go back to that scene where like she's trained, like she's trying to learn this like difficult, intricate piece. And it's just like that, the character in episode 1, the Kumiko in episode 1 wouldn't have done that, right? And it's like, you can see the positive effects that Reina has on her and how she's inspired by Reina. And that sort of like desire to be the best version of yourself, like having a partner and having like a foil or like an accomplice or a best friend who makes you, inspires you to be the best version of yourself. That's like really sort of like gratifying, and it's like a powerful thing. And seeing it so well portrayed and not like be sort of like, oh, I know that you're doing it, but I don't think you've earned that sort of like that emotion, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all there. And like, that's why I think like Kumiko is such a wonderful character in terms of like, I find her painfully relatable. Totally. And not like with Tomoya, where it's like, oh, I had a lot of life experience that sort of semi-mirrored his, right? This is like, no, like someone's like staring into your soul and just sort of like, this is like a spirit animal for you, right? Like you get this, what I'm talking about, right? This character, you're feeling this, totally. You felt these emotions, and and then watching Reina's like something quite aspirational about Reina. Like, and obviously there's like parts that you're like, how you say this? Like, I admire. There's certain things that's so admirable about Reina in terms of like, especially if you think of like, if I think about myself when I was that age and how like, how easily I would have wilted, we'll say, right, in the trumpet in the lead situation, okay, or just like. I admire like Kimiko says it. She says that's hot when she's talking about like her passions. I tell you, man, it's like it's the number one hot thing. Like if you want something, what is the most attractive thing in the world? I say it's this fucking passion. You're passionate about something, you care about something, and like I find that really attractive. I don't give a shit what it is. It could be gardening. It could be playing the goddamn trumpet. It could be fucking Sri Lankan tea. If you like it and you care about it, and it just portrays a depth of feeling and like a certain level of intelligence and emotional sort of like EQ, and just like, this person is interesting, and Reina just oozes it.
I gotta jump in here because you've covered a lot of things that 100% absolutely totally agree with. And I think that the show goes out of its way to like make Reina's passion become appealing to the viewer through its animation and the music and the voice acting and just all the tools that Kyoto Animation has at their disposal. They're going to put you in the situation of Kumiko. And like you said, that's not hard because she's caught up in this adolescence, this idea of not knowing who or what she wants to be, and then seeing something as strong as Reina's will and the amount that she's willing to sacrifice, the amount Reina's willing to sacrifice to go chase her passions and become that person, how much that is not only appealing but inspiring. Informs a lot of this show, and I think it informs some of the best moments of this show, which I think we should bring up when we're talking about Kumiko x Reina pairing. Because I think this show, one of the memes that came out of Hibike Euphonium first was the budget smile. And I actually did a video on this on my channel way back in the day when I thought I was going to do a series called Epic Moments in Anime, right? Nice. You know, and
Trademark.
This is the first. Yeah, do not steal. This was the first one of those. And like, it's such a moment, right? And it had the conceit of the video is that it happens after Kumiko opens up to Reina for the first time as they're walking home, and Kumiko shares a little bit about her true feelings and lets her mask fall down to Reina, who is permanently mask off throughout the entire show. And Reina responds to that with this like immense amount of animation of flipping her hair back and smiling with all the lights and the lens flares and everything. And it's just the most gorgeous thing of all time. It's a reward for you, just as it's a reward for Kumiko, because you were open, you were honest, and you know, and you didn't play into the societal expectations. So that's the other thing too. I'll get to the second moment after this, but I have a reading of Reina as autistic, and I don't know if you're like how much you know about autism or anything, but there was a study done, and the conceit of the study was that autistic people are the same in public as they are in private. There's no falsehoods. There's no false face that you put on for society's expectations, and normal people are, you know, normal with giant scare quotes around it, like
wearing various masks.
Yeah, exactly. We'll change that situation and do what Kumiko does in that situation and throughout the first half of Hibike Euphonium and be differential about it. So I don't know if that's supported, or I don't know if anybody else has made that reading, but I've seen that.
Yeah, I saw it like I saw it in the document that we were sharing, and it sort of like took me aback because I never actually considered her like from that perspective. Like, I guess like for clarity, my mom actually is a special needs teacher, and she works almost exclusively with autistic kids. And when I was growing up, I was around a lot of autistic children because she would, at that time, she wasn't in the classroom as such. She was actually like a support worker for a family that had a single mom who had 3 children, and 2 of the children were diagnosed with Asperger's and 1 had autism. And those 3 kids were like awesome kids, just like the nicest kids in the world. But it's like, it's such a diverse sort of like,
it totally is, and especially with women too. Like it's so there's so many ways to represent. So I don't want to speak out of my ass here. So I'm just gonna float it out there.
Yeah, like I think like it's definitely like if not, like I haven't considered it enough to say like, oh, I think you're right. But I think there's something to consider there. And when you start like, there's definitely moments where you're like, oh, maybe, you know, you might, you know, there's a lot. Again, I just think it's like, it speaks to the richness of the character that you can sort of like find so much in her that you're like, well, you know, there's a lot there. There's a lot going on. And because just like with any person you meet, right, there's a lot going on. And then you have a character. And this character is so well kind of crafted and so well rounded and so rich that they're like, it's like an iceberg, right? You're just sort of like, you know.
And that's part of the appeal, right? And that's, I think, everything you're saying in regards to Reina as a character right now is stuff that Kumiko feels looking at Reina, which goes very nicely into the kind of second moment that they have that got memed all the high heaven, which I'm sure you know is the very famous nose flick where they climb up on the mountain for the thing.
For the best episode of anime ever.
Yeah. It's a moment and a half. And
that whole thing contrasted with the Hazuki sort of like date.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. It's so good.
Just so well animated and so beautiful and
so thematically powerful too, right? Like Hazuki's chasing after this everyday life, you know, the normal high school experience, and then Reina and Kumiko are up high, like looking down on them, and you know, sharing in this more advanced or deeper passion, and you know, it says a lot about like the value of pursuing something wholeheartedly like Reina does.
I would say though, in a little shout out to Hazuki, like she is so relentlessly sincere,
Yeah,
and
she's great. She's great.
Yeah, like I said, one of those characters I always time does her no favors in my mind, because I always just like forget how awesome it was. And I remember the first time I was watching it, actually, like the first 5 or 6 episodes, I was very drawn to this character. I was like, I really like this girl, you know, because Sapphire is very, very cute and adorable, and she's sort of like, she's sort of constant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, she's just like
totally
a
static.
badass little bass player, and she's just adorable. But like, what Hazuki is like very like, she's very vulnerable, I guess, and you know, that's nice to see. I find it's nice to see, and it's refreshing. But yeah. Shout out to Hazuki.
You know, there's so many other angles too. Like before we get off of Reina, because, well, I don't know if you can ever get away from Reina in this show, but one of the other aspects of Reina that is admirable and interesting and contributes to that iceberg feel is her relationship with the teacher.
Yeah.
Like, she has some mixed feelings here. Like, she respects his passion as a music teacher, right, and as somebody who knows a lot about the music, and you know, that's her whole backstory with chasing him, but then there's also like her weird level of adolescence. Yeah. Like, he's actually very pretty, and she's into that, and
he sort of wandered out of the pool. I always like that joke. He sort of like wandered off a free into
yeah.
He's like I think later on when 𝓈𝒻𝒃𝓃𝓄𝒃 came out, it was sort of like, oh no, actually. But I remember at the time it came out, it was so like, oh, this guy looks like, you know, he whips his shirt off, and it's like, what's the name? The main dude from Free, Haruhi? Is that his name?
Haru Spring. Yeah.
It was just like, oh, this guy looks. This could be his older brother.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
You know? I would say on the teacher, like, just where we're on it, great teacher. I think like the way his sort of frankness, with them when he asked him to make a choice.
Oh yeah, that episode is so good. It's just so straightforward. When he just comes out and he's like, "Listen, we can either shit around or we can fucking go for nationals.
Yeah,
which one do you want to do?"
Yeah. Like
I'm getting paid either way.
Yeah, I actually like that. I like the frankness. And I think the fact that he treats them like he treats them as humans, which I think a lot of adults sort of forget that kids are actually like smarter than you think. You know what I mean? Like, and I had this thing as well when I was coming up, before I started like working with kids. You kind of just like, as you grow older, you sort of have this sort of like lost sense of like what kids are sort of capable of, and they're sort of like these little, you know, others, and you're sort of like, well, they're there, and I don't really fuck with them. With them. They just stay over there. You know?
When they turn 18, they will exist, but until then, whatever.
And even then, like barely, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But then it's like, I don't know. Once I got like, you know, literally forced to be in their presence and like work with them and see them, and it's like, wow, they're kind of like awesome. And then I remember like this thing where it's like a lot of adults, you know, they just don't get me, but they don't. They really don't. And I think it's like the fact that he sort of treats them like, he gives them this sort of like, he affords them the courtesy of treating them like adults and giving them an adult choice to make. And like, you know, and following through with it, you know, that you made this choice, this is what it's going to be, and I'm going to do this. He's sort of like a smiling hard ass as well, you know. He's not superficially a hard ass sort of like teacher, because he's such
but he calls people out. He doesn't mince the words.
He's brutally honest.
Yeah,
like he is brutal. Like, especially during the what was the part? The rehearsals, or not the rehearsal, but you know, he just like, the tryouts, I should say, for the parts.
The audition arc.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the audition arc, because that is the most distilled band drama. And I don't know, when you were in high school, there was just like, I don't know if you were in the band, I wasn't, but I knew that the band had a codified like band drama TM on it, you know, like distilled band drama. And you could just like, if you got anywhere near it, it would envelop you. And I think this is the most accurate representation of that, this audition arc, because the stuff with the trumpet tryouts for the lead thing with Reina and the third year, and then
KyoAni.
The girl with the ribbon on her head, who's her stan.
Yuka.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for the names.
These are like Yuko is like one of my favorite characters. I fucking love Yuko, but
right?
she does herself no favors in season 1. Every time I watch,
no.
because she like one of the things I have to get on this really quickly about Yuko. One of the things I love about Yuko is how aware she is of the feelings of others, and especially in Liz and the Bluebird, she sees through all the shit so quickly. She's her EQ is like really on point, and her empathy is really high. And unfortunately, in season 1, when she's just like so like she's just so like enamored with KyoAni and like, oh, she's so pretty and it's her last year, she needs to do the solo. And unfortunately for us, or for her, I'll say, in the eyes of the audience, is that that means she sees Reina in an antagonistic light, which is like hard because Reina's fucking awesome.
Right. And
so
it's impossible for her to maintain, right? Like that comes crashing down, right? Like she cannot be mad at Reina. And that's kind of like a thing that happens over the course of the season.
I was so happy when she became the president, or the president after like when she became a third year. I fucking love Yuko. Best ship is not, that's not Kimiko X right now. It's actually Yuko X Natsuki. There, I had to say it. At least once.
And then we're back at my staple food is love. That's
Sorry, that was a complete tangent, but that drama.
A complete tangent at all.
I mean, it's like in terms of like we were like the drama at that point. I was like, oh man, because when she had that moment when she heard her and Yuko broke.
I was getting there. I was getting there when they do the battle, right? The trumpet battle. And then you just hear Reina perform and you're like, fuck. And then everybody's crying and you're crying and it's just like, God, because you can this is crazy about this show, that by the end of Hibike Euphonium, you're actually like thinking like, are they in tune? Or like you actually have like a connoisseur ear towards the thing, even if you have no background on anything. That first episode, you could hear that the band sucks. And then when they perform, then there's a giant concert, right? Performance at the end, you're like, shit, that's good.
Yeah.
Right? Right?
I wouldn't say I was quite like, you definitely like fine tunes your ear. Like to like, I don't know, like to, I'm sure there's someone laughing at there, like, you petty mortal, you don't know anything.
We're insulting and
the big one for me was like, it was going to be that trumpet solo, the trumpet battle, because when KyoAni did it, she fucking nailed it. And I was like, okay, now am I going to be sophisticated enough to hear Reina crush this? Because you know, like, it's Reina, right? Reina has no weaknesses. You know,
you know what's going to happen. You know entirely what's going to happen.
Yeah, but I was like, am I just going to infer this from the characters, or am I going to be able to hear this? Because to me, KyoAni sounded great, but then there's like, not a terror and resonance, but there's like a moment where you're just like, this is just like, this is resonating on a different level here,
right? You feel it, and you're like, holy shit! How did this? It's like a sports drama where you actually stop, or you actually learn about the sport, and you feel it on that level that the characters feel it, and that type of voyeurism, that type of immersion into the thing, it should not be possible for something like a band anime, but it is, and it's staggering. It's kind of like why you can't deny this show is a 10 out of 10, because doing something like that is insane. It takes so much effort, so high production values. It's impossible to do that, and they do it.
They do. Also, like I actually liked, like, on a character level, how KyoAni took it in terms of like I could see why Yuko was so sort of fanatical about it, and then to really like make it like, it's one of those things. It's very interesting where like she has more to lose than Reina does, you know, and the fact that both stakes, that both outcomes are going to be happy, but both outcomes are also going to simultaneously be sad, is like affecting. Because especially when you get that context of how shitty it was for them, which this leads into like Natsuki's sort of attitude and the fact that there's not that many second years because it was just crap the year before. And you have someone like KyoAni, who's sort of like an emotional constant and like a figure to actually be worthy of looking up to, right? And this is the sort of antagonist, this is the one that we're sort of rooting against. This like perfect fucking like, and she's like the shoulder to like lean on for the president and Asuka. you know, she's a third member of that like awesome triangle of like senpais. Like, yeah, that's, I love that shit when they're just like, you know, I remember I called it like the law of equivalent exchange, to like borrow the Full Metal Alchemist thing, where like, yes, you get something, Reina gets the solo, but in exchange for that, something is lost. And that's Kaori, and that's Yuko, and that's that whole thing where like it meant a lot to them too.
Right.
They're not like, you know, baddies. They are like fucking, they're real people, and they're like good people. You know, and like, you know, they're probably like, if I was in high school, I'd probably fucking want Kaori to do it too. You know?
Yeah. And that is what defines good drama, or drama that is grown naturally out of the circumstances of the characters and not forced by the plot. If you can manage to make something feel positive and negative at the same time, or happy and sad, because you understand both sides of the issues, then you've written your character drama well. I mean, we could drop a ton of so many superlatives at the feet of Hibike Euphonium, and boy, we certainly will and have. It's just like you can't overstate these types of things, or how difficult this type of stuff is to do in visual narrative media, because people have been chasing this since the first movies. And in many ways, Hibike Euphonium comes out as this kind of like shining sapphire of you know, of condensed perfection in narrative storytelling.
Yeah, and we haven't really mentioned this yet, but I think it's really got to be sort of like explicitly said, is the sound design for the show is fucking incredible. Like, and that's like both the VA
as you would
performances
expect from a band thing, right? Like
the music, but there's a lot of things, especially in anime where budgets are budgets, right? Where you'll have a situation where like, this is a really good character anime. Like, I think Given is a good example of this, where like, I think Given's really good. I really enjoyed Given, but it's a music anime, right? These are about young boys in a band that are playing, right? And like, you have to give me that. You have to give me that, like, and it's my only criticism about KyoAni. It's like, you know what I would actually like more actually than playing. I know, you know, but
I do.
And it's just like the pieces were good. They were like, so as someone who like, my go-to is not sort of like ensemble classical music, right? That's not my go-to. Like, I enjoy it for what it is, and there are occasions when that's what I want to hear, but they chose works that were sort of like accessible enough and catchy enough and memorable enough that they just worked. So like, you hear it throughout the piece or throughout the anime itself, and you're like, yeah, I actually really dig this. I could listen to this. And then you couple that with just like good sound design in terms of like the character acting, the actors that were cast. Like, oh my god, like we said it off air. Tomoyo Kurosawa's performance as Kimiko is fucking incredible.
Yep.
And the Seiyu who plays Reina, I should have pulled her name up. Chika Anzai.
Yeah.
Oh, great. There's so many like great understated performances, and then there's like some big kind of like overstated performances. Like the VA who plays Asuka, for example. She's just like, she's so big, and she's so like, but that's so like what the character right? is, right? Yeah. Like, I'm actually like, hot take, I'm not the biggest Asuka fan personally. I think
that's fair.
Yeah, I think
what do you think about her arc in the second season?
Well, see, this is the issue. Like, you know, how like we're talking. I think you made a comment earlier on. I was going to make a sort of sly joke about. You said something about like, how could anyone like, you know, something Raina, like push Reina aside. I was like, well, they fucking push Reina aside in season 2, you know,
which is why I do not think season 2 is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it's not like, and I love season 2 because I love like my group, my gang, my favorite characters are all the second years. So you're talking like Yuki, you're talking Natsuki, Mizori. Those characters get sort of like really like they breath of life is just comes out of them in season 2, right? So, and then obviously Liz and the Bluebird is sort of like the conclusion of that for them,
right? But talk about sound design. Woo.
But the Kimiko Reina thing was just like so painfully lacking. Because I liked the president, but it just felt like a lot of displacement of like that shit that you're feeling right now for Asuka, or that's what we all fell in love with you and Reina, you know? And not that Asuka is very charismatic, and she's such a she's like an enigma wrapped in a pastry, right? She's so like she's fascinating in terms of like there's a lot like, especially in the first season when you don't know what's coming in season 2 and later on. Yeah, you're like, she's like mysterious. And I use that.
How
I use
how
it
does she
unironically.
maintain her thing? Doesn't she? I don't know if this is in the first or second season. I can't even remember at this point. But she, like, her relentless positivity is questioned or challenged, or there's a breakdown, and probably in the second season because it goes way more into her stuff. But there's
There's
isn't
like,
there like
yeah,
one scene in the first season, right?
there's a bit where, well, I think it's when the president. I love the president, by the way. I'm just going to say that now.
Sure.
She has like a bit of a breakdown moment, I think, and yeah, I'm getting the timeline a little bit mixed up. But Asuka sort of reveals the fact that she's sort of like, again, it's just a hint
on
of
that face.
something. Yeah,
She's
like,
yup.
she's such a capable person as well. She could be like a really good, like, this is such a weird statement of what's going to come out next. I'm warning you, this is going to be weird. She'd make a really good serial killer.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
She's just like, she's like a very, very capable human.
Well, I think that's part of her story in this season is that, like, what does this band need right now to succeed? And they need that kind of general positivity. They need that liveliness. They need her spirit, and that's what she provides. And I think her analyzing that and bringing that to the table, super valuable. But again, understated. It doesn't get too much play in this season.
Also, her relationship with Haruka, the president. I fucking love the president. I love her sort of like feelings of inadequacy.
Oh yeah.
And in season 2, she gets like a sax solo, and it's like there's like a lot of great performances in Euphonium. A lot. Like anytime Rain is just playing as the sun goes down, like fantastic, right? But when Haruka has that sax solo in season 2, when they're having this sort of like fun day out event, fucking awesome. I was rooting for her so hard because because it's so like she can see it, right? And I'm sure it's like everyone knows, why is not Asuka not the president? Why is Asuka not the president? Why is Haruka the president? I'll tell you why Haruka's the president, because she's fucking awesome, and she's I like just because this is the problem with me talking about Euphonium. It's like, oh, I have to mention how great Goto is. I love big stoic Goto, and Sapphire's little sister and Kumiko's big sister.
Yes. Yes. Like I said, they put so much effort into the entire cast, and the collective angle of it cannot be ignored. So everybody's cool. Everybody's a hero and a villain. Everybody's on the same page, and everybody's drama is legitimate. It's super powerful, right?
Oh. Very, very, very much so. And I can once you get going about it, when you start that feeling that comes out of you can just feel it kind of flowing out of you when you're talking about this show. And you kind of know it's like, I get it why people fucking love this thing, why people care about it so much, and why it hits like this. It's a bit of an overused phrase, right? This idea like something hits a certain way. This one does hit. It hits differently. It does. Like of all of the things on the list, I just don't think I've had this sort of like emotional. I've loved certain shows, and I love certain characters. Like, and we sort of like have a bit of a different take on certain KyoAni shows,
right?
But like, there are shows coming up that have like, if I go to my Ani list or my Mal list, like my top 10 anime characters, I think. Well, actually, there is a character from like Chinibyo, for example, who is on my top 10. Right, she's on my top 10. Right
I see.
But even that, I just love that character, but. When I compare that character to like a Yuko, and a Natsuki, a Kumiko, a Reina, it's just a different thing. You know what I mean? I think the only thing that got close to it for me in terms of like that sort of like feeling was Bloom Into You. Yuko from Bloom Into You.
Yeah, sure.
She was another character. I just thought, wow, this character is just very, very well put. Like, she could be in Euphonium. I guess that's like the highest praise I could give a sort of a character-driven show.
No, I get you, and I think the thing that I relate to or feel the same way about would be the when somebody brings up talking about the characters in Sailor Moon or the Sailor Soldiers, and how like they stop becoming like anime characters, and they stop becoming elements of this show. They stop becoming drama vehicles through which we experience this tale, and they start becoming just people,
Yeah.
people that may not exist in any physical meat space, but nonetheless you are engaged with them in their reality. And yeah, Kumiko is a fully fleshed out enough to make us believe that she is a person. And I think that extends to most of the cast as well. And that type of relationship that you would have with those fictional characters, I get you. It's different than just, I appreciate this character as an anime character or as a fictional character. It's like, this is a friend. I know I'd never met this friend. I know I'll never talk to this friend, but this is somebody that I relate to and empathize with. And, I feel them. I grok them. I drink deeply of them. I think for me, the element is, there's one more moment that I have to bring up in Hibike Euphonium, because I think it is, again, one of the most popular ones, or the one that gets the most play. And that's this segment where Kumiko like breaks down and realizes that she does share Reina's values and she does want to compete, and she's like crying and she runs across the bridge.
The bridge,
yeah.
Yes.
And this scene is just that element of, damn, it's the climax, right? Or so much as it would be for Kumiko's arc. And it's so well animated. It's so produced and so effective at conveying her emotions in that state that it takes me back every time I see it. I'm like, okay, this is the mindset she's in. This is where she's at. And I love it. Also, I will shout out here, Yoshiji Kigami, whose name will come up when we get to Munto somewhere on down the line.
Munto.
But
obligatory reference for the episode, Munto.
Yeah, shout outs to Munto. We will get there. But Kigami, the legendary animator for the Kyoto animation until his death in the arson attack, he animated that entire scene of her running across the bridge, and part of why it's so smooth, so good.
That scene is like, that one was not, I feel like that was a rewatchable scene when you have like the bigger picture of like who Kumiko is as a character. That scene becomes so much more like affecting, where I think with like certain, like for episode, like the episode 8, that just all of episode 8 in general, it's like that's an instant like, okay, this is like a big moment. But there's certain scenes that sort of, just certain characters and certain like moments and interactions that sort of grow with like rewatchability. And like the more time you spend with these characters, and the way you get like a deeper understanding of like the intricacies of like why this is emotionally impactful, as you rewatch it. Like this is definitely a show that's worthy of rewatching. I feel like with Clannad, you're kind of good once, personally.
I would agree.
And that's no shade on Clannad. It's just, I just don't think it has that sort of like texturedness. Like maybe there are certain like clues in regards to like the whole like robot light world of lights in the shed, girl in the white dress. That's that sort of like other layer of reality that was going on. Like there might be some sort of like narrative clues and like little bits, but in terms of like an emotional sort of like vehicle that you're going to experience, I don't think it would have the same sort of like resonance the second time around.
And try and think about what your feelings are about Nagisa from Clannad right now, and then think of how that compares to Kumiko. Even if we're thinking of like the most emotional or impactful scenes of Nagisa, of her standing beneath the hoop or something with the basketball, and then comparing that to running across the bridge, and it's like, why do you feel differently about one than the other? I think that in and of itself is evidence to show, not only how Kyoto Animation improved over the years, but also how they refocused and made a more dramatic story, and how storytelling in general improved, how they used all their production values to get at a place where you could experience the same feelings as the characters and know them and love them for it.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And I noticed you mentioned you had a thing about like leg shots, and Naoko Yamada has been mentioned. I kind of wanted to like praise, and not specifically on the legs, because I think it's like with KyoAni, it's like it's all about the legs, the feet, and like even like Koe no Kotachi, it's like it's there, and it's like it's her thing, it's her visual calling card. And
wait, is KyoAni about the legs? I thought it was about the blobbiness and the no animation on the hands, little
yeah, I mean it's like
squish.
There's sort of like Naoko Yamada being sort of Naoko Yamada though, in terms of like
gotcha.
With this one, I think it's like I think it just extends beyond just the legs. Like I think the eyes are like the how the eyes are animated and like the way they would touch their hair or the way they would clench a fist or they would fix, you know,
everything is so glossy. Everything like shines in this like, you know, for as well as Kyoto Animation does at portraying a modern Japanese background and kind of like art style, that just all these characters are so gorgeous in the way that they, I don't know, that they kind of appear in this state of perfection almost, or they look like angels. They look like cherubs, right?
It's like ambrosial.
Yeah, it really is. It's ethereal. It's otherworldly. And yeah, then you couple in the feet and the knees, and good God, you know, you've seen that meme picture where it's just Kumiko and everything is her legs, her heads are her legs, her arms are her legs. And yeah.
Oh, also, this is a very like random detail, but it just shows how well they like thought about the character design and the physicality of the characters and like how much effort they put into making these characters feel sort of like tactile. I love how tall Kumiko is. Like that's like,
oh yeah,
that's like how many characters you can say, oh, she has like a physical, like you think, oh, that character has like this certain hair, right? And no, Kimiko's tall. Like she's tall. Like she's a tall girl, you know, and Sapphire's a small girl. And, you know, there's these physical things that are just like, oh, that just makes it feel more real to me. Because like she doesn't need to be tall for the story. It's not mentioned at all. It's not like a plot point. It just so happens that when you look at her, it's like, oh, she is quite tall, you know.
And it's maintained, and it shows the care and the quality that of the production here. Like everybody has that, though, right? You know, everybody has their own little tics and their own little, you know, personality imbued in their character designs. It makes them feel real again, like you said.
I just like the fact that somebody clearly had like. This was not just like, oh, we made this character. Like, that's what she looks like. And they're all sort of
here's
like
the reference sheet. You know, we can see how tall she is in relation to the other characters. And there you go. If you ever need to see it.
Yeah. And also the hair is very like, I'd say very unique hairstyle. You know?
Yeah, totally.
I do say I like her. I do like Kumiko when she has her hair tied back. Yeah. Personally. But the octopus thing is sort of like the octopus hair, as you said, is so fucking iconic in terms of like, I can't, because there's like a certain like, like it's not wholly one for one, but you can see sort of like other characters in other KyoAni works where you're sort of like, okay, like I can see a bit of Chitanda or maybe even Mio from K-On! in Reina, totally. And Kiori has that like Kumin senpai from Shinubio. They kind of like have a visual sort of like uniformity. But Kumiko is sort of like, well, you look like Kumiko, and that's it. You know?
It really is. And I think too that I don't know, but I spoke about this in my eulogy video after the fire for the people that worked on Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, and like Shoko Ikeda does the character designs in this show, right? And she did the character designs in Haruhi, and the I don't think people realize how much taking just, you know, a light novel illustration from somebody and a description in a light novel and then turning that into an entire decade style of animation and character design. I don't think people give that credit where that credit is due.
Yeah, for the magnitude of that task.
Yeah. And like you bring it up when you talk about making Kumiko, and there is that element there too, right? And I think you see that in even to Violet Evergarden. That's kind of why I say the like Hibike Euphonium is the modern Kyoto animation style, because that I see so much of that in Violet too. So much of just like, that's Violet Evergarden. Sure is. Yeah. And even though she's just a blonde woman, right? Like there's nothing particularly interesting aside from her hands. So there's a power in character design, and it's a power that feeds back into the story too. It makes Kumiko unique. It makes you feel like you are there with Kumiko and with all these other characters because they are so individualized.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the fun things about this show is like you could just literally just like point to a random character in the background and kind of just go like, I wonder what her story is. She looks in like Drills Girl, I think is like the classic one in my mind, because she's always there and she has those big fucking drills that are like every year or so there'll be like an anime character with drills, you know, and you're like, oh, there she is. There's Drills Girl who'll never get a line. I know she's a third year. I know she's in like, you know, she's a bassoon player or whatever. And just the fact that there's like literally everyone, it's a remarkable sort of like feat, like to execute that, like just like this like massive group of people to put the time into just like, like crafting, like it's like Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, right?
Yeah,
just
like an as an album cover. Yes, in very much the same way. It kind of did the same level of quality that redefined album covers. Yeah, I agree with that comparison. Can I give you another comparison here?
Sure, dude.
This is one I was thinking about, and I didn't put it on the notes or anything. And again, I'm bringing everything back to Haruhi Suzumiya, but I think one of the other things about Hibike Euphonium that it gets a lot of praise for is just doing the entire performance. You mentioned it as something you loved when we were talking about the show earlier. They just animate an entire concert performance, and that's something that exists. I don't know that would exist if Endless 8 didn't first exist, because I see that same type of risk taking. I see that same type of why would you ever do that idea or aesthetic or devil-may-care attitude, and putting all your effort into it. So it goes for the characters in the story. So it goes for the animation studio. Like give it your best. Do everything you possibly can, and try and achieve something that's never been done before. Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard anyone compare the NSA to the final performance in season 1.
Now you have. There you go.
I like that. Also, on the final performance, that's one of the reasons I was fucking like so. I still like season 2, but the fact that we don't get that big final performance in season 2, they just don't make it, was a bit like, that was a little bit disheartening. In terms of like why was that a choice that was made? Because you just killed it so much. But again, like you mentioned it, like the braveness, and the just like, no, we're doing this. Fuck this. This needs to be done, and this is like artistic integrity here. Like that's like admirable, especially like I think people can go one or two ways with the end to say, right? Like I'm not gonna lie, I had a hard time getting through it, but I was damn sure that I was going to get through it. Like I'm not, we're doing this, right. But like the thought of going, I don't know.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, have you rewatched the NSA?
Yes, I did. Last year I rewatched Haruhi Suzumiya. But yeah, no, the idea is that this, in Hibike Euphonium, the end concert scene, the artistic integrity of doing an entire concert scene pays off. And I think that's generally undeniable, or I don't know. I'd like to hear any arguments against it, but I think it is effective, even if you are not a fan of watching concert performance. I think it really does show you or become a climax that you would be invested in. Whereas in Endless 8, the idea is that we want to convey to the viewer that KyoAni is trapped in this endless, repeated, ongoing no way out, and he has to find a way out. And the frustration that goes along with that, it's kind of these negative emotions. It's kind of like the panic of not being able to figure your way out of this Endless 8. Does that come across when you're watching Endless 8? I would say for many people it does, but also kind of trips over that line for many people of going into it took me out of the film, and it took me out of the thing. So maybe you could make the argument that the performance at the end of Hibike Euphonium, the entire performance, takes people out of enjoying the drama of the story. But I don't know that it really, that it seems to a much less degree, or it would be much harder to make that argument for Hibike Euphonium.
Absolutely. I can't even comprehend that line. Like I can understand it logically, the line of like that reasoning, but emotionally, you might like you might as well be banging two pots together and saying like, that's my theory on fucking relativity, right? It's like I don't get that. Like what? It's like there's a gap of there's some cognitive dissonance going on here, because that's the payoff. That's what they were working for, right? And just like watching, like again, because you're talking about the light and the color, like how like well like lit and shiny and sort of like ethereal everything is, and just like how beautiful the instruments sort of glow when they are playing, and just like the breaths and the like the little physical ticks and just like everything, like all the drama, all the bullshit, all those additions, every fucking beat we had was leading to this syncopation between these like 100 like or 50 souls coming together for this like perfect 6 minutes. And if you can't take 6 to 8 minutes or whatever it was just to sit there and just like go, that's the payoff, like this is competitive, right? This is like you wouldn't complain about a Haikyuu doing a whole season for one game, or Kuroko no Basket doing 10 episodes or whatever for a basketball game. This is their game, right? This is their moment, and just let it breathe. Like, and the fact that they didn't need cuts or, like it was, like, it was just, oh man, it was fantastic. And again, talk about how well it was done. You'd have like, her name sort of escapes me now. The Liz and the Bluebird character, not Missouri, the one who quit the band, Nozomi, just sort of like there and watching and like, just, you guys make so much effort. You guys are so good at this shit,
Yep, it's the small stuff. It really, really is the small stuff, and all throughout, not just in that performance, but all throughout, you have like all your little Kumiko little mouth sounds or exasperated sounds. You got all your little, flumping down on a bed, and then the sound effect on that, and there's just the tiny little moments that make the show so powerful.
I also, I gotta say, on the sort of like nice touches to this sort of series composition, I like the inclusion of Kumiko's sister as sort of like this sort of weird sort of like cautionary. I don't want to say a cautionary tale because that like implies that that's what she is, everything that Kumiko doesn't want to be. But it's sort of like, well, it's almost like this is what could happen, to you, and you inherently don't want that because you, as much as you struggle and as much as you don't want to admit it, you're more like Raina than you are your sister in terms of, and just like having that sort of like crossroads, that sort of dueling influence of like which way she could go. And then obviously that it kind of extends with her senpai who she grew up with, who chooses to focus on her studies more,
Yep.
And that was that's one of those moments where you're like, she's such a very, very relatable thing. But those early doors when she's like not giving it her all, and she, and you're just like,
like totally.
You're completely justified, but fuck you at the same time,
Yeah, exactly. But you can't tell her she's wrong. She's got to come to herself.
A nice exhale of like just what a show.
Can we also need to, like, before we get to any type of conclusions or wrap up in this show, we need to talk about like, when I remember very distinctly in 2015 when the show was airing, there, especially after episode 8 and the nose flick and everything, especially after so many talk about adolescence and all this stuff, that the show was accused of Yuri baiting pretty hard in the Reina and Kumiko relationship. Do you have any thoughts on this, or do you have any passion towards this? Because I know a lot of people do.
Look, how do you say this? Like, it's like, okay. So I guess I think you get like, you get what you put into it, right? Like emotionally, and like, doesn't at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's implied or it's not, or if they're sort of going for something. I don't think it was like low hanging fruit in terms of like that scene, particularly episode 8. There was a lot going on that episode. It was very like emotionally, like, not emotionally, it was very tight in terms of like how it was produced. If it was, if it needed a bit of like Yuri baiting or whatever, I don't know. I can't condemn him for it. Like, and also, I don't necessarily think of it like as a explicitly physical romance. More so like I totally agree. Like a soul bonding, right?
That is what I would. And I think that was where I was going to go with it. Yep.
And it's like one of those things where like I would, if you want to talk about like, we'll say souls, like I'm not saying I believe in the existence of souls, but I think
you're not willing to drop that hot spicy take that you believe in souls.
Like, if souls were exist, I don't think they're gendered. Okay.
Oh yeah, totally.
And these are just two. These are two souls that are making a moment where it's connecting, right? And I think regardless of gender, that scene is, it's very important. And I just, the fact that it has to be like seen as Yuri baiting, I don't know. It just seems
you're telling the people you got to look deeper. You got to understand. You got to And I think
it just seems unnecessarily cynical and kind of like
that's an example of
like Scroogey. It's kind of it sounds like some boomer bullshit, honestly. And I expect better from the anime community.
I would say, you got to meet a show where it's at, right? And the show is deliberately asking you to, be enthralled by the passion that Kumiko is seeing in Reina, and whether that's any type, whether that aligns with your ideals of like what a relationship should look like, or what the story you want to see in an anime. That's another story entirely.
The trickiness is like, I know it's the Suichi thing, like where I believe in the light novels, doesn't Kumiko end up with Suichi?
You tell me. You're the one who's read.
I haven't read the books because I just know
okay,
I just know that in the books it was like she ends up with a best boy simultaneously worst boy only boy.
No, that's shit. I don't like that ending.
That's it. No, but that's what I mean. It's like, well, it's a lot of it's going to depend on like how they choose to like handle it themselves, because there's no obligation that you need to follow the core text to the letter, right? Like you can, like if you think of like Game of Thrones, like they went off on their own road years ago.
That's a whole nother 90-minute podcast.
Yeah, right. But it's like like you like at the end of the day, it's like you're making this thing. Like, what are you going to do?
Right.
Like, because I hate that. Well, like, no, I don't always hate it, but where it's sort of like the default thing is like, well, that's not how they did it in the anime, or or that's not how they did it in the manga, or that's not how they did it in the light novel, or the original. You know, it's like, all right, okay, well, then go fucking read the original.
Or like imagine that type of attitude too, you know, when people are like, oh, you got to skip these episodes because they're just filler and get to the good stuff. So you know, like thinking about the idea that you would skip episodes of HBK Euphonium because they're just filler and get to the good stuff.
The good stuff.
It's just hilarious, right? It's like the way people engage with this type of media does not always, you know, hit. I was talking before the podcast started about IGN's top 25 anime of all time, right? And spoilers, but there's no HBK Euphonium on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be, honestly, not from IGN.
Right. Which
like,
is
my head would explode. Like, what?
Yeah, but in my top 25 list, hell yeah,
easily.
Right? Yeah,
well, it's in my top 5. But
so
out of curiosity, what's number 1 on that list? I assume it wasn't Ouran High School Host Club.
Oh no. There's other Igarashi works there that did a little. No, my favorite anime of all time is a tie, I think, between Princess Tutu and Madoka Magica. Then you go into like Penguin Drum, Nichijou, A Place for the Universe, things along those lines. Go on from there. There's a lot of stuff that I like highly, and I'm a fan of, you know, if it does everything it sets out to do, we give it a 10 out of 10. And this show certainly does. But then the nuances are in, you know, what did it do? What were the ambitions? What new ideas did it bring to the table? How entertaining was it to watch?
Yeah.
But I here's a challenge for you. Name one negative thing or thing that you do not like about HBK Euphonium.
Season 1?
Yeah, season 1. Oh, season 1. No. Season 2, too easy. No.
Like
and that's look. What are they doing for season 3? What are they going to do for season 3? This was like when they announced that. I'm like, what are you going to do? Like season 1's so condensed, and then season 2 is like, meh. Yeah. And then season 3 is, what are you doing?
I assume it's going to be like, yeah, I'm not really sure, because I think the second movie, or sorry, is it the second movie, the one that's post Liz and the Bluebird, where it's that felt like, well, that's the end, right? Like.
Yeah,
it's hard to know, honestly. I think it might just be the end. It might be the culmination of Kimiko and Reina's second year in band, and then there might be like a time skip where it's maybe like them making a decision in terms of, well, Kumiko making a decision in terms of like her romantic life and her professional life, in terms of like, because like Reina is so like, you know, Reina is fucking, she knows what she wants in life in terms of like, she is going to be like, there's, you go 20 years in time, she's going to be a musician. Right, that's what Rain is doing. You know, but
so we want to plug our next episode too, because that sounds a lot like the storyline in Free Eternal Summer.
Yes, that is coming up next, by the way, and that will feature a guest. So like, this is our last, because this is, I guess, for us, it's sort of like a chronological thing, where for people experiencing this, it's a simultaneous thing in terms of like, this episode is releasing the same day as 𝓈𝒶𝓇𝓇𝑒 coming out, but for us, they're like, there's a bit of a gap in terms of time. But yes, the next batch. The next episode drop will be one featuring a guest, and it's going to be free. Yeah, I'm excited for that one as well.
We've lost the thread, though. Okay. Negative thing about HBK Euphonium season 1. Go.
Negative. Oh, fuck. Dude, it's... I love a challenge, and I want to find something, but I'm really struggling, because if it was season 2 or even Liz and the Bluebird, I have like ones ready to go.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. People love Liz and the Bluebird, and I was like, okay.
Okay, I don't think I have one. I do have something for Liz and the Bluebird, though. We could talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, we probably should, because we're not going to, go back and, well, maybe, who knows what the future holds. I'll give you my negative, though.
Sure.
If you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Tutti is a bad ending song. I do not like that ending song.
Wait, no,
you don't even remember it, do you?
No,
yeah, you see, this is what I'm saying. It.
There's a song. I don't know if it's the ending one or the beginning one. It's like, like the kind of like indie pop sort of.
Yeah.
Is that it? You don't like that song?
No,
I
no,
fucking
that's not
loved it.
Tutti. Tutti's
Oh, okay.
like do.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of the. I caught the. Oh, what is that song from? It's from Liz and the Bluebird. I don't know where it's placed though. Maybe it's
I
the
don't know.
beginning. Maybe. I may. Okay.
Okay.
Mine's a little bit spicier.
Yeah.
My brain is breaking down right now. I'm trying to think of this Tootie song.
Well,
Incoherence.
we're coming off of like legendary openings and endings throughout all of Kyoto Animation, and I think the opening's pretty good with the Hibike and all that nonsense. But yeah, no, Tutti is no, don't say lazy, that's for sure.
Oh my god, yeah. Or yeah, Don't Say Lazy is like up there. I'd say that's like number 2 in KyoAni EDs.
What's your number one?
Oh, Chunibyo ED season 1. Come
on.
Like whatever your feelings about Chunibyo are, that fucking ED slaps.
Okay, I was gonna say only the most famous ED of all time with the Hari Yukai, but okay.
Actually, I just remember Dango as well. Like Dango is
Dango's pretty good. Dango's pretty good.
Yeah, that one's so cute, dude.
The first free ending too is really fun.
Yeah, the first free OP as well, because like I find the Kyo Animation kind of hit and miss with the OPs. There's a certain like sameness to them in terms of like I think they're like, well, we had Haruhi, let's just do that again, and like okay, so yeah, listen to Bluebirds. Mizore and Nozomi, I think, are not a good tandem at all. Because I was again this thing of idea of like mutually inspiring each other to be better, the best versions of yourselves. That doesn't happen. They're like there's like a dependency that's not healthy. I just don't think they work together. So that was like my thing with that movie. It was like, oh, this like that ain't Reina and Kumiko or Yuko or Natsuki or the president and Asuka. Like this is like a kind of so it's kind of icky. I don't like it. I don't like this. Love the movie, but I didn't love
it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Oh, so the directing is so good. I will say that my criticism of Liz and the Bluebird is just that the like central inversion that what's her face is the Bluebird and the other one's the girl, and it's like swapped, and it's like this big moment in the thing of like she was the Bluebird all along, and I'm like, that's not that big of a revelation. I kind of saw that coming a while ago, and it doesn't hit as hard.
I think I remember this again, or some of this like 4 podcasts where we like randomly started talking about Euphonium. I guessed it on another podcast that's now defunct when Liz and the Bluebird came out. And I think the conclusion that we kind of drew to that one at the time was that they're both simultaneously Liz and the Bluebird. And it's just a matter.
I like it.
It's just like it's a matter of perspective, because they both need to be freed from each other, but they also need to let each other go. It's like, it's the thing. It's like I said, it's not the healthiest romance, but I don't think it's meant to be. But I just have this weird thing where people sort of venerate this, like Mizori X Nozomi thing, where it's like that is not Kumiko and Reina. That's not. It's actively detrimental. Like that's why they need to let each other go. And speaking of autistic characters, possibly, I think you could convince me more with Mizore. She's
she's either that, or some type of
she's an interesting character for sure. And she's cute. She's a second year, so automatically like predisposed to liking her because the second year's rock. If you have a blue scarf, you're like on my team.
Okay, all right. See me roll my eyes there. Okay. What did No. I wanted to stop you here because you brought up something very interesting that I think we should talk about in terms of character dynamics. Do you think we've talked about how Reina's passion influences Kumiko? How do you think Kumiko influences Reina?
Yeah, that's a good one. Because I wonder. You don't hear that often in terms of like.
Right. I don't know that I have an answer to that. I don't know if the show does.
Yeah, because a lot of it is so framed. It's all not a lot of it. It is. It's framed through Kumiko's experience, right?
Oh, totally.
So a lot of like what you get from Reina is either perceived or sort of like you projected it onto her, right? Shit, dude, I don't know. Maybe it's like a validation, like a solidification of what she needs to do. Because I'm sure she's human, right? There must have been times where that Yuko Kyouri trumpet lead thing was like, there might have been a wavering, right? And I think Kumiko just gave her like a pep talk at one time where she's like, "No, you fucking, you go, Reina, you go,
right?
You go, Glen Coco." That's a Mean
Mean
Girls
Girls
reference.
reference. There we go,
But
yeah.
you got that. I like that though, because
Oh, bro, I say that all the time. I love that movie. Shout out to Tina Fey.
Yeah, I would say that it's like Reina's like, see, Reina's like Reina, right?
Yeah.
So she can do it, right? But having someone to like lead, having someone like just to be at your back,
Yep.
I would say that's
Yep.
like a spurring influence, if not one that you needed to drag you on, right?
Totally.
Because like
totally.
Reina's not one of those people that needs that, right? She just needs like the reminder that she has it, and Kumiko could be that sort of like emotional support as like a parent, right? Where like it's like you don't need to like pressure them, or you don't need to like not you can just be like, I'm there on the sidelines and I'm supporting you, be the best version of you. You go, King.
Yeah. Or like a soulmate, or like a lover, ideally. Like
ideally,
any of those roles
sure.
can any of those roles can provide it. But yeah, no, and I think that would be, man. If we're just like brainstorming what a season 3 could possibly be, that's something that I feel would be very interested in watching. A little more Reino Kumiko and Reina.
One of the real pleasures from Liz and the Bluebird was just seeing like older characters who had sort of like grown to a point where they could sort of like have a dynamic going on, and just getting these weird little scenes where like, not weird little scenes, these like little moments where like Kumiko and Reina would always walk in together, and every time you saw Kumiko, she was with Reina.
Yes.
That was awesome. Just like, it was such like a minor thing, but every time I like, my fucking heart lit up. And that sort of expands to Yuko and Natsuki, where they like Yuko becomes president. Natsuki sort of like, Natsuki goes from like staring out the window to like, now she's like, she is the Asuka, and she's just like busting Yuko's chops all the time. And it's just like, oh, what a like a development for you guys. Like, because I fucking love that relationship those two have, where they sort of like simultaneously hate each other. But when when the whole trumpet shit goes down, and when Yuko has like her breakdown, who does she go to? She goes to Natsuki, and that's why Natsuki is the best girl in all of anime, and Yuko is fucking awesome. And
thematically too, we're better together, and that type of thing being shown in that way, and in a really visceral kind of like lived in way that you can't deny. It reminds me of some of the best couples of anime that I've loved too. So would you give your couple then best couple for this episode? Do you think that they're...
Oh, it's Natsuki and Yuko for me.
Okay. All right.
But that's so like personal bias, because it's one of those things I kind of mentioned about Hazuki earlier on, where she's so relentlessly sincere. I said I love how emotionally like considerate of others Yuko is, even though she is wearing the black hat in season 1 because of the trumpet thing. But that side, she just reads people so well. And this is more season 2 and Liz and the Bluebirds. And Natsuki is just being funny, and like she's also clearly into metal, which is like such a fucking cool little thing. Her fake metal band t-shirts in season 2.
So, like, cement addiction. Hell yeah.
Oh man.
Shout out to the pool episode.
And just her journey, with that, like that. So those two together are just like, like that's like they're like you're talking about like same-sex couples that are just like fucking awesome. All the best. Like I can see like I have like my real life friends who are like in same-sex relationships, and especially ones who are older and more settled down. What Natsuki and Yuko have, it's just like, that's fucking real.
It reminds me of Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune from Sailor Moon. Haruka and Michiru. And you heard it first here, folks, that Kumiko and Reina, they're not the best couple, even in this show, let alone all of Kyoto Animation. Let's
be like, if I have to be objective. Now, that's probably, you probably would say that
that's cheating because they have more screen time.
But for me, it's Natsuki and Yuko. But are you taking Reina and Kumiko?
No, my best couple is Hazuki, and she doesn't really end up with anybody, but
and her loneliness. And her giant ass fucking, what does she play? The tuba-kun?
Tuba-kun. Tuba-kun X Hansky. That's my OTP.
This is one of those things where like there's very few times in anime where you're like, not very few times, but there's a few times when you're like, I want that to I need that. Like when I saw Tamako Market, like I need to have a Dara plushie. I fucking need a Tuba-kun fucking like figure. for my back pack.
See,
You know,
the best part is in Japanese, and I've never watched the English dub, but in Japanese they don't say Tuba-kun, they say Chuba-kun every sing, and it's so funny every time Midori says it. It's very funny.
That oh man, Sapphire. That just like kind of leads into Sapphire because
we didn't talk about her at all.
Yeah.
We talked about her. She didn't get much time. But yeah,
that's the problem. Is the cast is so huge, but when she
Right.
when she sees Kimiko in the fucking costume, and she's sort of like, and she knows it's going to happen, but she still sort of marks out just a wrestling fan term. She's still sort of like a, you know, otaku's out to like the fucking coop tattoo, but it's like, you know, that's Kimiko. Like, what the fuck is going on right now? Oh, adorable. Also, her sister, like mini Sapphire.
Her sister's great.
She's very adorable.
Great.
Yeah, she's like, her and Hazuki are sort of just like this beautiful constant of like, oh, aren't they just lovely, those characters? And like, they're just sort of there, and they're like, they're part of the crew. Like, and you know, you never worry about them, right? You know, like they're just great characters, relentlessly positive. In Sapphire's case, awesome. I'd imagine she's like she's like the Azunya of like KyoAni, where she's like, yeah, but she's a really good musician, right? Like, yeah, I know she's the small and the cute one, but she's also a fucking badass guitar player. You know?
right.
Where she's like rocking the Fender Jag, but you know, Sapphire's got chops. Contrabass, yeah. Also, there's the fact that weird like thing is like, well, you know what's funny? Little people holding massive objects.
Totally.
So shout out to Sapphire, shout out to Hazuki, you much love. Now when you talk about like the KyoAni couple list in general, that's a tough one because there's a lot of great ones, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to Rin X Howard next episode. So
yeah, and then you got like, I think like, it's tough. I feel like it's whatever it would be will have to dethrone Natsuki and Yuko for me / Reina and Kimiko / what, you know, the side new ships like that, kind of like, that's just like, for me it's just like, it's if you think of like Haruhi or like Chunibyo or that kind of, or like Clannad, even Clannad, there's like there's a certain like there's something about them where they're just sort of like, I don't want to say sexless in terms of like, totally, it's just like, it's a little bit more like naive,
clandestine
or clean, like you don't,
or not clandestine,
you know, or sanitized maybe, or like just it's more like of an abstract concept where this is like, you know, like there's like a sweatiness, there's a visceralness,
it's a passion behind it, right? We'll come back to the passion that that would lead right into that type of romantic relationship too. If you have a passionate, you know, a work, quote unquote work relationship, but you know, something you're engaged with together, and that driving that passion makes it very easy to fall into any other type of passion, certainly.
So last episode we kind of like wrapped it up with a bit of if you like Clannad, you would like this.
Ooh, can I stop first and give the tier list ranking?
Oh yeah.
I think I know where you would put it. And I think I'm right aligned with it. I think this is top tier Kyoto animation. I think this is an S tier anime in general throughout anything. So I would put this up at the top.
Yeah, this will get me on my Lucky Star S tier. Not on the list, by the way. Don't, if you're waiting for
Lucky Star S tier.
No, as in like, I want to make a sort of semi-referential. I was like, oh, you could call it the K tier. And I was like, no, a star though is like, you know, a universal symbol of like excellent performance.
Okay. I thought you were putting Lucky Star up in the S tier. Wow, that's a play. That
would literally be a hot take.
That's some spice right there. I like Lucky Star.
I do too, but it's not S tier.
Yeah,
that's welcome to the B tier, Lucky Star. And, you sit next to Clannad.
Pretty solidly.
S tier for sure. And on the KyoAni big board that we're sort of like making right now, I'd have like, well, there's only 2 people on the board, but I would have Euphonium and then Clannad.
Yes.
And that, you know, not that it's like a hard list with 2, but you know, as shows come and go, you know, they'll just get a little bit more spicy, you know. I don't envisage anything coming out ahead of Sound Euphonium for me personally, but you never know. You know,
I understand that opinion. Spoilers for me, but I think Nichijou is my favorite Kyoto Animation show, and that's the other one I would kind of throw up there. That and Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya if we were doing movies. Those are my two other kind of like S tier shows that I really feel passionately about. But not Kyoto Animation, Hibike Euphonium is undeniable. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, if you don't rank this 10 out of 10, what are you doing? How you have to tell me you're reading that makes this not one of the best anime ever made and one of the most concise, focused, and powerful dramas ever made.
Yeah, dude, for sure. So I kind of mentioned it there a little bit, but the idea of like, if you want a parallel, you want a comp to this, like we sort of said, like with Clannad, you could go the sort of, if you want that sort of like sentimentality, that maudlin thing, you could have that sort. You could have Your Lie in April or something like that, right?
Right.
Again, I would say this is another top 100 anime, by the way. I think we would both agree on that.
Your Lie in April?
No, Euphonium.
Totally.
Like if Clannad is on that list, then this is fucking.
Yeah, I wonder where it's ranked in like my anime list or something.
It's got an 8. It's got an 8, so it's sort of like
568th best anime.
And you have to remember, there's like 100 fucking versions of Gintama that are just like flagging up that list. Also, the fact that it's an 8, which like just to give you context, Bloom Into You is a 7.99, and I think that show is criminally underrated. Sure. Like this is in terms of Mal. Okay, like people love...
Oh, yeah, and this is Mal, too. And this is the people that, would put top 25 anime and they'd put 24 shonen action shows. So.
Yeah. But if you like Euphonium, I do think you would like Bloom Into You. So there you go.
Yeah, that's okay, you were going for the character relationship angle. I like it. Because the mind immediately jumps to any type of, like, band drama or like passion together through playing music, kind of like a Your Lie in April, kind of like Kids on the Slope, right?
Given, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of music anime actually. I don't know.
Not K-On though.
Not K-On. No,
I'm not sure.
That would not be similar.
It's like it's of love and cake, and then maybe music is in there somewhere after putting cat ears on Asuna.
What was the other one? Oh, I was gonna say like Nana, but even that is just a drama that tangentially involves music. And I don't know if the music needs to be your favorite thing. I would actually kind of go to a sports drama because you hit that kind of collaborative effort, the kind of together, any type of team sports. Don't watch Tomorrow's Joe or something and expect that to be similar to Hibike Euphonium. I would say maybe your Haikyuus, maybe I don't know sports as well as I would like. Whatever sports drama is out there, tell me.
I guess for me it would be I think there's some it's such a character piece, and I think I have like so much, like I think the characters have so much interiority. I just constantly feel like that's where I'm going for. Maybe less so the subject wise and more so the treatment of the characters. Yeah, and I think of Euphonium, I'm just thinking of like, again, the first one that came to mind is Bloom Into You. I feel
I would agree. Yeah.
And then I think maybe something like the better slice of lives, like Barakamon or Your Light, A Place for in the Universe. I think that one actually, you mentioned it earlier on.
Yeah,
I think that would I think if you liked Euphonium, you're definitely going to like A Place for in the Universe.
I would agree, but I would also say that it's not because of the slice of life aspects. I would say because it's a very focused drama.
Yeah, but also just like we have high school girls who are just like
adolescents
building these incredible relationships,
bonds, and interpersonal bonds, totally.
Again, where every character, like each of those 4 characters are just so well crafted. And again, it's certain characters that could fit into that world. I could see sort of like a, like that, so like those, like, Reina fitting into that trip to Antarctica, right? Or so, because she has that sort of focus that is it Shirazé? Is that the
Shirazé? Yeah.
There's kind of parallels in terms of like they have that focus, they have that drive.
I think there's a reading of Shirazé as autistic as well, in the same way that I read Reina as autistic. I might be talking about my ass.
I could see that one. I can see that one for sure.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that might be the big one. I feel like that if I had to say 2, maybe a place. The more I think about the place for in the universe, the more I'm sort of liking that one. That one. But again, Bloom Into You. And
yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say, or?
I don't know. I can we overstate how much this show achieves its goals? I don't think we can. It bears repeating once again that when you set out to make art, you set out with a purpose in mind. For anything on the level of a anime, this huge production that takes 20 years to get going, to get the studio to the place where it can produce something like this, that takes all this effort from all these individual contributors to be on the same page. Like, you got to have a purpose in mind. You need to have an objective. And Euphonium is so laser focused on achieving that objective through all its avenues, using all its production values of the highest that anime can provide to get you to a place where you feel those values, that you can't overstate that stuff. You cannot, literally, you do not have the ability to say how powerful and impactful it is unless you watch it and you experience it firsthand.
Oh, dude, said it better than I could. Fantastic. Cosign. And
yes, sir.
That's it, man. Like, it's one of those things where you could talk about it forever, and there's so much to say, but that's just the richness of the show. Like, if you're listening to this and you've got this far, you've watched it,
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Again, in comments, because we haven't released these episodes yet and they will come out at the same time, we don't know like what what people's takes are with regards to either Clannad or Sound Youth. So I'd like to hear them or read them in the comments, and we can address them maybe at a later date in a future episode.
Yeah, this will be up on your channel, right, Yana?
Yeah, you can find this one on our
YouTube,
on my channel or on the RSS feed. And all the subsequent links will be in the description to this video or in the episode notes. So make sure you go over. If you haven't already, make sure and go check out the Clannad episode. And I would say do it first, because that one has the preface for like what we are doing here. That one also has the full list of animes that we're going to be doing on this. Sorry, I used animes with an S, anime, for all the Reddit users. The plural of anime is anime. I know.
If you made it this far, go comment on the YouTube video that the plural of anime is anime.
Yeah, not the butchering. There's a few like faux pas that were up. You were doing off the cuff. Not everything's going to be 100% right. I apologize.
No. But also in the comments, you can maybe tell us what you didn't like about Hibike Euphonium. I think we all know what we do like about it, but I would like to hear your other readings of characters. I would like to hear anything you have to say about Hibike Euphonium. I really genuinely would.
Absolutely. Yeah. We will be back next time for free, and we're featuring our first guest. And basically what's going to happen is now going forward for the remaining 6 installments, I think we have locked in a guest for every single episode now.
I believe so,
or at least like a pencil
perspective.
Guest.
Yeah. We'll get somebody. We'll find somebody. It's not hard to find people who want to talk about Kyoto animation shows.
Not at all, apparently. Even Munto.
even Myriad Colors Phantom World.
Yeah, that was way easier than I thought. I thought that was going to be a hard sell. I know you love Sound Euphonium, KyoAni, Clannad, Comical Market. But could I interest you in Myriad Colors Prismatic World? Phantom World, yeah.
Phantom World, yeah.
Could I interest you in that now? Someone's got to do it, or that's basically the attitude. Someone's got to do it, and apparently we were the ones that had to do it. But I think it's going to be fun, because it's
going to be fun.
Choosing KyoAni or Hyoka or Lucky Star, that would have been obvious. We wanted to spice it up with the most... with the list featuring Munto and Myriad Colors. I love it.
Stay tuned.
All right. I guess it's bye, love you, bye. Until next time. I physically was about to start waving. But it's an audio medium.
They can't see it. Yeah, they can't see it. But it's okay.
I'm waving from the heart.
I'll wave back.